So, good morning, friends. A hearty welcome to the first edition of Season 2 of the VDMA CEO's Thought Leadership Series. And a pleasure for me today to welcome Mr. Norbert Wirth, Managing Director of Hawer and Boecker India Pvt Ltd. Hearty welcome to you, Mr. Wirth, and thank you for joining us on the show today. Friends, before I start, I would like to briefly introduce Mr. Wirth. After his studies in economy in Germany, Mr. Wirth joined the government of Dubai in 1997. As manager commerce marketing, he was promoting Dubai as a business hub to companies in Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. He joined a German company manufacturing truck spare parts and successfully built up a subsidiary in Jebel Ali Free Zone with an own spare parts logistics center. From there, Mr. Wirth joined MAN Truck and Bus, one of the world's leading truck manufacturers belonging to the Volkswagen. After heading the spare parts business in North, East, West, and Central Africa, he was transferred to Moscow as Director After Sales for Russia. Since 2017, Mr. Wirth is running Haver and Boecker Indian manufacturing subsidiary in Vadodara. So, Mr. Wirth, hearty welcome to this edition of the VDMA CEO's Thought Leadership Series. Mr. Wirth, you've been associated with India for more than 2 decades, and you've been living now in India for a good 3.5 years. So in these 3.5 years, Mr. Wirth, we would like you to share with our audience what has been your experience in India, and if you could highlight a couple of points where you felt India has done well, and maybe a couple of points where you feel India could have done better. So we would like to hear from you, Mr. Wirth.
It's a little bit too difficult to judge what I've seen in the last 3.5 years and experienced in the last 3.5 years, because living here and seeing the development every day, then you don't really see the changes. But when my colleagues from Germany come to India and who haven't been here for 3 to 5 years, they always report and tell me about really big changes that India went through. And I'm traveling to India since 1998. And there, of course, I have seen the very big changes. And the biggest changes I've experienced were mainly in the infrastructure, the travel and the hospitality sector. I remember 20 years ago, first time arriving in Mumbai and driving to Colaba was completely different than nowadays. Nowadays, driving over this new bridge and you see the skyline like any other metropolitan city around the world. And this is the same with all the other big cities. And what I also experienced is this massive change in the way of thinking and the way of modernization in India in terms of environment protection, work safety, automation, digitalization. And recently I haven't attended any conference or exhibition where these subjects were not top of the agenda. However, and this is now my points, and this is my personal perception, I personally feel that there is still a gap between understanding and the transformation. And for me, as a managing director running a German company here, for me, the major drawback is the price sensitivity in the Indian market. And with that said, the best possible solution is not always the first choice. Just a few examples that I see that people see who visited me here in India or visiting me for the first time. What you see in the streets, transport business, for example, especially for hazardous products or milk products. You see very often quite old trucks, they are badly illuminated, and you don't find any European trucks that you find in Middle East, Africa, around the world, MAN, Scania, Volvo, Mercedes, etc. Looking at road construction, for example, scaffolding in the construction industry, many people are asking me, look, there is a high-rise building here in Bangalore or in Mumbai, and I see that there is bamboo sticks scaffolding. So these things still shows that India is not really 100% up to date. And these are the obvious examples. I have visited a lot of factories in India, from cement, chemical, building materials. And the good thing is I've seen a lot factories that are absolutely on European standard, very modern, work safety, top in environmental protection, and they're coming more and more. But I've also seen very bad examples in India where you find a lot of dust. The workers are not protected very well. And this, of course, is the bad thing. And from Haver and Boecker, for example, we are also a specialist in providing packing solutions that are most efficient, safe to operate and dust-free. But many customers are choosing rather the second best option rather than the best one for them to protect the environment. And last not least, my biggest issue here in India, unfortunately, is the waste problem. Because when I'm going to the beautiful beaches in Goa, or just recently I've been to the beautiful place Darjeeling, I stood there on a very nice platform to have a fantastic scenery. And when I looked down, I saw plastic bottles, glass bottles, plastic all around. So this is a little bit sad. And I think here the government needs to either implement incentives for the industry to have stricter environmental guidelines, or to implement also stricter punishments for waste littering, etc.
Right. I think correctly you've pointed out certain loopholes we still need to, I think, get in order, and certainly waste management, as you correctly said, Mr. Wirth, that is a major issue in India, and especially because of the population also and the amount of waste that is generated. However, let's come to Haver and Boecker, Mr. Wirth. You're the managing director of Haver and Boecker India operation. Haver and Boecker is a good example of a family-owned Mittelstand German company, a 133-year-old company. In fact, it has certainly a strong tradition. What I wanted to understand from you, Mr. Wirth, is we would like you to highlight a little bit about the journey of Haver and Boecker in India, and specifically what was the trigger for choosing Vadodara for setting up the operations in India?
Yeah, Haver and Boecker India was founded here in India 12 years ago. And I will start with the second question, why we have chosen Vadodara. The Haver and Boecker group exists of two divisions. We have the machine production division and the wire weaving division. And the wire weaving division has a joint venture with an Indian company here in Vadodara, and they already had a factory. So it was very, very easy for us to just choose the plot beside them and build our factory beside them, because they could really help us to get the plot of land, to get the construction done, to get all the paperwork done. So this was one reason why we have chosen Vadodara. Secondly, Haver and Boecker is involved in the chemical industry. So we're having a lot of packing lines for the chemical industry. And as you might know, Gujarat is really a hub for the chemical industry in India, with a lot of chemical hubs or chemical zones like in Ankleshwar, in Bharuch, in Dahej, etc. And personally, I must say, I also enjoy living in Vadodara, because the rents are okay. You have not so much traffic like in big other cities, and it's quite clean in comparison to other cities. And I personally like it here very, very much.
Right. That. Yeah.
And why Haver and Boecker came to India, of course, like so many other German companies, India has a huge potential, and for Haver and Boecker in all areas, in cement, building materials, chemicals, food and mining. So everywhere where we are involved, India is offering us a very, very good growth market. But we are not a pure machine supplier in India, because what we have also done in the last years, we have built up a very strong and profitable customer support and service division for our group companies and for our technology companies who are having projects here around India, for Middle East, in Africa, in other parts of Asia, Southeast Asia. And here we have a very strong service with really great technical stuff. And we help the group with erection, commissioning, technical engineering support, and of course with the spare part supply from our warehouse here in Vadodara.
Right, right.
And also I would like to mention that Haver and Boecker is going to a transformation at the moment as well from a pure machine factory to a machine and system factory. So a real solution provider. When an Indian company comes to us and says, look, we're having issues with packing, can you help us? We just don't deliver a machine. We are telling them how to do it right. And what we have successfully done here is that we are offering operation and maintenance. And we have big customers here who really like this. They get technology from Germany and they don't have to operate it themselves. We are operating it with our own staff.
Right, right. I think, Mr. Wirth, VDMA is proud to have Hawer and Boecker as its member company, and wishing you a lot of success also in your operations in India and the expansion of the activities in India. Mr. Wirth, let's come to the aspect of skill development. Now, this has been a topic of discussion for several years, especially amongst the German companies. And we all know that if India has to grow, the skill sets, the skill levels have to also grow in India. Now, with your vast international experience, work experience, Mr. Wirth, how can India, this shortcoming in India, how can this be fulfilled and what needs to be done? Is it more requirement from the industry or do we need support from the government agencies, Mr. Wirth?
I personally don't really see a skill gap in India, or I haven't experienced it to such an extent. I have had many extremely positive experiences here in India with staff, as well as in the Middle East, where I had a lot of Indian colleagues. Right. India has a lot of young people with excellent education, technical skills, and the big advantage of speaking English. That's why we can utilize them all around the area here. Where I see the biggest problem here is that many young people don't have access to the better education, because the people who are educated here, they have a perfect education. And we at Haver and Boecker, we are taking this as a win-win situation, because we are getting excellent Indian colleagues from the Indian colleges and from the universities with a top formal education already, and send them to Germany. There they learn the language, they are working in a team-orientated and growth-orientated environment, and then they are coming back to India. And here in India, they are then taking care about the technology from the group. And at whomever you ask in my company, everybody says that the Indian service engineers that we are having, they're all super, they are reliable, you can send them wherever you want, they speak perfect English, they are hardworking. So this is great. And I believe that we as Haver and Boecker are doing a good job here by helping more young people to come into the job and to get a proper training. And I know from all the other German companies that they are doing the same. And this is what we, the members of VDMA, are doing and helping really India to get more people transferred from unskilled workers into skilled ones.
Right, right. But that's very positive to hear, Mr. Wirth, that you've had very good experiences with the skill development in India, and also your experience with the Indians working in Middle East. They were pretty skilled. So I think that's a very positive point, Mr. Wirth. Mr. Wirth, let's come a little bit to the global scenario. Actually, we are seeing, if we, Mr. Wirth, that perhaps countries are moving from globalization more towards regionalization. What are your views here, and how do you perceive also the Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme, or the India's endeavor to become self-reliant, Mr. Wirth? What is your take on that?
Yeah, here I'm having a very clear opinion, and I'm definitely not a friend of this self-protecting market policies. it is very important to gain a certain independence in order to avoid largely negative or positive trade balances. It's very clear. But each industrial nation, yeah, has its strengths and weaknesses. And it's very well known in the VDMA and around the world that Germany is one of the leading countries in machine conception and production. Also at Haver and Boecker, for example, we are having more than 130 years of experience in developing and manufacturing technology to pack raw materials in the most accurate, efficient and clean manner. And I give you one example. We have, when I came here 3.5 years ago, we have a very big customer and he told me, we as an Indian company, we're having a world-class product, but with very bad packing. And this says it all. I give you an example. Take, for example, a customer from us who is packing blue pigment. Yeah, good. So he is in India and probably around the world the #1 manufacturer of this blue pigment. And he is exporting it to Europe, to the United States, wherever. Now imagine the container with his top product is arriving. The customer is opening the container and he stands in blue dust, because the material is not inside the bags, it's outside, because it's a weak packing. So they will close the container and ship it back to India, but not because the product is bad, because the packing is bad. And why should the Indian world-class manufacturer of blue pigments develop strength in packing? Why should he do this? Therefore, he has a company, yeah, a German company who is here in India to help him with this. So we should work together, rather than trying to isolate and everybody does what he's doing best in his own country. This is my opinion, and that's why this black and white, the most important thing is to really work together in this field. And this shows what VDMA is also doing for years, that what you have done here, together with the member companies, yeah, this has a great development in India, and I think we should continue with this and not think about another direction now.
Right. And generally, what is your views, Mr. Wirth? Do you think that countries are moving away from the concept of globalization?
To a certain extent, yes. And I believe as well that the pandemic has shown with some shortages in the supply chains that it's necessary. And I think to a certain extent to become more independent is good. And just in the newspaper today, I've heard that also India now has problems with or shortcomings with the vaccine production because they have certain ingredients. They rely on importing them. Yes. So to a certain extent, it's good when you don't rely 100% on globalization, but only to a certain extent. And the cooperation is still very important, is now and will be in the future, in my opinion.
Right, right. And Mr. Wirth, also, I think India has to increase its role in the global value chain. I think that is very important, because unless the exports can be increased from India, that will give boost also to the complete manufacturing sector as well as create employment in India, Mr. Wirth.
I'm very positive about this, and that's why I'm in India, and that's why I'm 100% positive that India will play a big role in this. And what we mentioned earlier, there are certain prerequisites, yeah, that have to be done, but India has definitely the chance to increase also the exports significantly. But again, to export, there are certain norms that you have fulfilled to for exporting to other countries. Yeah, there are certain norms, there are certain standards. And also what I've seen that a lot of companies here in India could produce much, much more if they would invest in their plants to be more efficient. And we, the member companies of the VDMA, we are the exact partners for this, to really upgrade the plants to increase the export.
Right, right, right. Coming back to year 2020, Mr. Wirth, it's called the Black Swan year. The global economy, because of the pandemic, has been badly impacted. However, can you mention two sweet spots in your personal or professional life, Mr. Wirth, in these tough times?
Now, the sweet spots is difficult to find in these very difficult times, but as we all know, every crisis, every disaster in history was followed by improving the current situation. And what I can definitely think of improvement is on the health sector. Think about the German very famous company now, BioNTech. What they have done earlier, researching in these RNA methods, but for cancer treatments mainly. They were not founded to develop a vaccine. But now, due to this vast development, they have the chance to be much quicker also with their RNA methods to find medicines against cancer. So maybe and hopefully in the future we can say, because of a pandemic, because of the crisis, more people could be healed from cancer in the future. And another important thing, what we all do and what we currently doing as well, is we are talking on a webinar, and this home office and webinars have opened us possibilities that we didn't have in the past. I can give you an example with the Haver and Boecker. We had started with projects 2019-20 in the Indian market. And now in 2020-21, these projects need to be erected and commissioned. But German engineers can't travel to India. So we had no other chance than doing this remotely. And this was perfectly working. We had our service engineers with the VR glasses, for example, at the customer. The German technicians were sitting in front of their monitors in Germany. And we were able to really get a very, very good success. And the customer was very happy. Without traveling, yeah, and I think this will also change the way of working for us at Haver and Boecker and save some money in the future.
Right, right. Generally, Mr. Wirth, how's been your experience at Hawer and Boecker India when we talk about work from home? Do you think it is because being an engineering company, was it easy or how difficult was it to start this concept of work from home?
It was for us very difficult in the beginning because the lockdown came more or less overnight.
Right.
The situation we were facing in the beginning, that a lot of the technical colleagues, the colleagues from the technical departments, they didn't have a proper Wi-Fi connection at home. So not the best one, just for their private use. Right. So if I had known this before, we would have given and implemented a proper Wi-Fi at their house, that they have the proper setup for their hardware. And in the beginning of the crisis, during the lockdown, we also couldn't go to the company. So also here we had to go via the motorway, and this was blocked. To get the hardware to the people's homes and to install a proper Wi-Fi connection, this was a problem. But this we have now changed completely. And if, God forbid, another lockdown would come, we would be much better prepared that people can work from home.
Right. And do you feel this work from home would be something that you would like to carry forward also when the situation improves, Mr. Wirth?
Yes, for certain people, definitely yes, because what we are a little bit outside of Vadodara, so we have this transport. We have a bus, and of course there are certain timings. And I have seen when somebody has the computer, the proper setup, and he has to have technical talks with our colleagues in Germany due to the difference. Why shouldn't they work from home? So yes, we will definitely take this concept on in the future as well.
Right, right. Coming to the last question for today, Mr. Wirth. Now we know that COVID has impacted business and the workforce. In fact, now we are in the midst perhaps of the second wave here in India. Companies have been impacted not only financially, but I think emotionally also. Now, this pandemic is quite a challenge for industry leaders, Mr. Wirth. We would like you to share 2 or 3 tips with our audience as well as with the CEOs of the German companies in India. Because when the pandemic started, there was no rule book or nothing to fall back upon how one can handle such a situation. So what would be your 2 to 3 tips, Mr. Wirth, for the industry leaders? How can one navigate the boat in the stormy waters of COVID?
Yeah, here I can only talk about myself, less in general, and I can tell you what was important for me. So talking about navigating a boat through stormy water or take an airplane, what happens in an airplane when they go through stormy weather? The captain will say, I'm in control, and he will be in control to land this plane safely. And the passengers in the back, this is exactly what they're expecting, that there is somebody who can fly this plane through stormy weathers. And to stay in this picture, our employees are the passengers. So they are, of course, they were insecure. They didn't know, should I come to work? Should I not? Is it dangerous? Is it not dangerous? And yeah, they were afraid. Some people were afraid. Some people didn't care so much about it. And that's why it was important that call me the captain then, to be on the bridge. So I was here also from the beginning. Most of the days I'm working in the company, that people see I'm here. Yeah. And secondly, what was very important for me is to show respect to the crisis. And I want to explain you what I mean with this. I've seen this also. I was in Germany in August, and they have showed me really the way how to treat this crisis well. You don't have to tell, no, it's not a problem. Let's come to work. We have to work. This work needs to go on. Or the other extreme, to spread fear and panic. So it is very important to show the employees here, it's like, yes, there is a crisis, we have to respect it, we have to be careful, but on the other side, when we take care about certain issues, we will definitely maneuver together through this stormy weather. And third, what was very important for us here in Haver and Boecker, and we are a family company, is when people needed help. Yeah, they got it without any bureaucracy. And we had, luckily, nobody from our staff to be hospitalized or to be in a critical position, but we had family members who were. And when somebody came and said, look, father has to go to hospital to get oxygen, I can't pay, no matter what, we always paid. We said, send the people to hospital, so we will take care about everything. So these are the three things: to be visible, to treat the whole pandemic with respect, make sure that the people are behaving the right way during the pandemic, and last not least, to really help them who can't help themselves during this pandemic.
Excellent, Mr. Wirth. I think very valuable suggestions and tips from your side, and I think also this factor of empathy with the workforce. This was very much required from the industry leaders during this period. Mr. Wirth, it's been a pleasure interacting with you, and on behalf of the German Engineering Federation, VDMA, wishing you, the company, a lot of success in your plans in India and the future business in India. Stay connected with us, and thank you also for supporting VDMA in its endeavors, Mr. Wirth.
Definitely. And I'm looking very much forward to see you back in person again.
Thank you, Mr. Wirth. Stay well.
And
Thank
have
you.
a nice
Goodbye.
Stay well.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.